From real inspiration to digital iteration to achieving perfection. Make it right the first time with a digital twin. Transform the everyday with Siemens.
Tonight's meal, tilapia surprise with boiled cabbage. Begin cooking steps 1 through 50 now.
Are you kidding me? Making dinner shouldn't feel like doing a 1,000-piece puzzle. With Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals, the hard part's already done. Pre-chopped ingredients, zero stress. Just assemble, bake, and enjoy. No complicated steps, no mountain of dishes. Try Assemble and Bake today. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Hello and welcome to mini episode number 477 of Real Life Ghost Stories. And I have 2 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from the 5th of June 2025. And story number 1 comes from Zophea. I just re-listened to my story that you read back in 2023. It was episode 31 Days of Terror, day number 21. I would like to clarify something you had asked in your recap, whether I believe it was the dolls that were possessed or was it something following me? And honestly, with the incredulous amount of crazy that I've witnessed, I'd say something has been following me my entire life. As to what? I couldn't fathom a guess. When I was 16, I was a bad kid. Drinking, drugs, partying, walking the streets of a bad neighbourhood like I owned the place. Me and a few friends of mine were walking around, not exactly sober, but not falling over drunk. Somehow I managed to be the most sober one there. We were walking to a gas station to grab munchies and had no car. While my friends were all being loud and extremely obnoxious, sorry neighbours, I was focused on getting to the store, getting my noms and then getting home so I could pass right out. We turned the corner and a blast of freezing air surrounded me. It felt like I just jumped into an ice bath. I started shaking. And out of nowhere I heard, "Run." I couldn't tell if it was inside my head or not. I turned to look at my friends thinking one of them saw something. But they were still back there acting like monkeys. My friend Miranda was next to me and asked why I stopped walking. I asked her if she heard anything. She said, "Other than those fools back there acting stupid, no." I figured it was in my head. I was drunk after all, so I started walking again. And yet again, boom, icy air. I heard the voice again, but this time it said, "Run, go home and don't look back." The voice was female, but I didn't recognise who it was. I told my friends that I wasn't feeling too well and that I thought that we should go back to the house. After a bunch of drunken arguing, we turned back and went back to the house. The next morning I woke up first and I could hear what sounded like a million police sirens. Turns out the very store that we were going to go to was robbed, and the clerk was shot 4 times and the assistant was shot in the leg. I don't know what it was that told me to go home, but boy do I thank the gods for the intervention. Another story was a bit closer to the present time. About a year ago my husband had some business to attend to in the sticks. Just to note, where I'm from, in the sticks means in the middle of nowhere surrounded by woods. I've never been there before, but as we were leaving I heard singing in the forest. I asked him to drive up the road a bit to see what was out there. What we found made my spooky little heart very happy. It was an old, dilapidated church. Broken windows, nature reclaiming the building, a creepy girl's dream. It was where I heard the singing from. I asked my husband if he knew anything about this place, and he said it was an old Pentecostal church that people abandoned as they moved away. He is very aware of my interests and said, "If you want to go and look, I won't stop you, but I ain't coming." He said jokingly, as he knows about my talents, so we got out of the truck and we walked in. I looked around and cleared my mind as I've been practicing to do. I closed my eyes and concentrated, and when I opened my eyes, I see a crowded little room. bursting at the seams with the congregation, people in joy, jumping, singing, hooping and hollering, which is what my mama or my grandma would call it. It was weird but not scary because honestly I'm kind of used to it by now. I'm watching the people in their joy, and then I hear the pastor quiet them down in order to pray the outro prayer. Next thing I know, a little girl with pigtails and a light blue Sunday dress grabs my hand. I look down and she motions for me to bow my head to pray. I do so more out of respect than anything. As I heard the pastor say amen, I opened my eyes and was back in the crumbling structure. My husband behind me. He saw it in my eyes and asked me what I saw. I told him and he just shook his head, did a little chuckle and asked, I really did marry a weirdo, didn't I? And to that I could just beam and say, yep. So obviously when you were 16, like, something had your back. Do you know what I mean? Something, whatever it is. Guardian angel, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Guardian spirit, something had your back and was like, when you didn't run the first time, it was like, well, I'm just going to have to double down and say run, go home and don't look back. And, you know, you can be drunk to a degree where you aren't in a right frame of mind. But if you're tipsy with your friends and you're all kind of acting silly, like that's not drunk enough to be hallucinating someone saying run, go home and don't look back, like a woman's voice. And thank God you recognised that voice, as in you registered that voice and said, you know what, I'm going to do what that voice says. Because that was obviously a very violent robbery. And if you had been caught up in the middle of it, that wouldn't have been good. So obviously something had your back, and I bet you're pretty thankful for it. And as for the second story, right, I was really giggling to myself when I was reading this, because when you said, you know, I heard singing coming from the forest, I could hear people going, no, don't follow the singing in the forest. No. Now, obviously, in this instance, we have a beautiful moment rather than you being whisked away by the fairies into oblivion. But generally, I'd advise against following singing into the forest. But like I said, in this instance, it just feels like it was a lovely experience. To be able to witness this moment of like people being joyful in their congregation, you know, where everybody is like singing, jumping around with joy. And it's just gorgeous. What a beautiful thing to say and what a beautiful thing to be able to witness. It did make me think though that like you were obviously seeing some sort of echo of the past, and this wee girl with pigtails came up and grabbed your hand. In that moment in the past, did she see you? You know what I mean? I also love that your husband is like, oh God, yeah, I'm not going in. And then he's like, well, fine, I'll go in. And he's just accepting that he's married to a spooky gal. That's what we like to hear. That's the man we want in our lives.
A PSA from Instacart. It's Sunday, 5 p.m. You had a non-stop weekend. You're running on empty. And so is your fridge. You're in the trenches of the Sunday scaries. You don't have it in you to go to the store, but this is your reminder. You don't have to. You can get everything you need delivered through Instacart so that you can get what you really need. More time to do whatever you want. Instacart. For one less Sunday scary, we're here.
Why does every recipe I try need 18 ingredients, including a jar of something paste I'll never use again, but will sit in my fridge for 9 months? I just want dinner in the oven, fast. That's why I love Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals. They send you fresh ingredients that are already chopped. All you do is put it all together and bake. That's it. No chopping, no weird leftovers, just delicious, easy-to-make meals. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Ever wonder why you have insurance for your car or home, but not your digital life? Meet WebRoot Total Protection, your digital bodyguard that is built for real life. WebRoot takes the guessing game out of cybersecurity, so you can confidently browse, bank, and be yourself online without the worry of hackers lurking around the corner. With WebRoot Total Protection, you get antivirus that scans 6 times faster and takes up 33 times less space than the other guys. Identity protection with up to $1 million in fraud expense reimbursement and 24/7 U.S.-based customer support. VPN protection that hides your IP address, personal data, and location from hackers. And cloud backup with unlimited storage that works automatically in the background. With plans for individuals and families, Webroot makes it easy to live a better digital life. Go to webroot.com/promo and get 50% off today. That's webroot.com/promo to get 50% off today. Live a better digital life with Webroot, because peace of mind shouldn't be optional.
What's it like to care for someone who's sick? To wait for answers, to hope for healing. These are the moments our nation's healthcare teams and their patients face every single day. And it's why we do what we do. We're Siemens Healthineers, and we pioneer breakthroughs in healthcare for everyone, everywhere. Across the country, from rural communities to busy cities, our medical imaging, therapy, and laboratory solutions help providers deliver care that can be smarter, faster, and more precise. With more than 17,000 employees across the United States, we're driving innovations that support healthcare teams, strengthen systems, and truly change people's lives. Because for us, it's about more than technology, more than innovation. It's a promise, built for generations. Siemens Healthineers.
And story number 2 comes from Stephanie. Before we begin, I would like to give a trigger warning for suicide attempts. Not only was I a spooky kid, but I also gave birth to one. We both should have been drop-kicked down the stairs at some point. Growing up, I lived in Oklahoma, where my dad was a reverend. I spent many hours at the funeral home sitting in a chair doing my homework, while my dad visited with family members of the deceased. I attended numerous funeral services and spent a lot of time in the cemeteries. I was used to spooky things as a kid. My parents firmly believed there was no such thing as ghosts, only angels and demons. I begged to differ with them because I felt a lot of things a kid shouldn't necessarily feel, such as the feeling that I was always being watched. My parents always chalked it up to my creative imagination, but was it? I remember having an imaginary friend who lived in the tree behind the house. Her name was Marie, and she was very pale, had long stringy hair, and seemed sad all the time. One day when I was older, she went away, and I never saw her again. Fast forward to my adult years. By this time I had a daughter. One morning when she was around preschool age, she came running into my bedroom and breathlessly said, "Mommy, that little boy kept trying to scare me, but his mommy told him to stop." I was very concerned because she and I were the only ones at home at the time. I thought perhaps she had let someone in the front door who didn't belong there. I asked where the little boy and his mommy were. She pointed at the hallway and said, "See? They're standing right there." There was most definitely no one there that I could see. It was around this time that she started having night terrors and refused to go to sleep unless her father or I lay on the floor next to her bed. She was constantly terrified of the man who came out of the closet. It was a huge ritual to reassure her every night that she was completely safe. One night during this time, I woke up in the middle of the night to a transparent little boy with a baseball cap standing next to the bed. He reached out, touched my arm and said, "Please help me find my mama." I screamed and he disappeared. I am prone to sleep paralysis, so maybe he was just a part of a sleep paralysis dream. I was so upset that I made my children's father switch sides of the bed with me. I have no idea how that would have kept the little ghost boy from getting to me, but it sure made sense at the time. My children's father sometimes worked overnight, and I would lie in bed listening to the kitchen cabinets open and shut. Several times I got up and looked, and there was absolutely nothing there. I would listen to music at night, so I began to turn the radio up a little louder. I should mention that the house was rather old. It was built in the late 1940s. A few years later, I gave birth to another daughter. I was in the bathroom that the two girls shared, changing the baby's diaper. I felt someone small walk up behind me and tug on my skirt. I turned around to say, "What do you need, baby?" thinking it was my older daughter. There was no one there, but I knew I felt a little hand tug on me. I looked through the bedroom doorway to see that my oldest was playing in the living room with her father. There was no way she could have run in the bedroom and back out that fast. A few years later, the girl's father and I divorced. I was married to my second husband by then. We lived in an apartment complex that was quaint and adorable, but once again, built in the 40s. My husband was a skeptic about the existence of ghosts, so when I came home from work one night to see him distraught, I was concerned. He told me that he had been having a shower when he saw, through the glass shower doors, a shadow pass in the hallway. He was the only one home at the time. He told me that he had never believed in ghosts, but something about seeing that shadow made him think otherwise that night. It was during this time that my girls would complain about someone walking back and forth past their bedroom door. They could see the shadow under the door. It progressed even further when I opened my eyes one night to see a dark, cloaked figure with bright green eyes run very fast into our closet. Not long after the incident, I lay in bed one night and listened to the springs inside the bedroom doorknob tighten up. All at once I saw the bedroom door fly open, as if someone had flung it open and ran through. There was absolutely no one there. I waited for it to slam shut, but it never did. My oldest daughter once again had an experience when we were on a family outing in San Antonio, Texas. We visited the Alamo one Saturday afternoon. We were walking a self-guided tour when we entered the room where the women and children were hidden during the siege. My oldest daughter covered her ears and started crying. I asked her what was wrong. She said, "Mom, I want to leave. Can't you hear them, Mom? They're screaming and crying." I took her outside to get some fresh air and she immediately stopped crying. She reiterated that she could hear people screaming and crying in that room. She once again asked me if everyone could feel and see things. I told her that I firmly believed they did, but that some people push all of it way down deep inside or ignore it because it scares them. She and I have always had things that were attracted to us, and we both can feel other people's feelings as well as feel and hear things that no one else seems to. We both seem to know when someone is about to pass away as well. It is hard to describe that feeling, other than an immediate thought of that person and extreme grief. My mother's family is British and Scottish. All the women in that side of the family are sweet and kind, but have the ability to be extremely powerful. I believe that there are most definitely witches in our past, and that is why my daughter and I can sense and hear things. This leads me to my last story. My grandpa passed away in 2017. I was the first grandchild and he and I were inseparable. He used to sit me on his lap in his recliner and spoon feed me sips of coffee. That's probably why I'm only 5'2". We had a record that we would listen to together, Marty Robbins' song El Paso. I loved my grandpa more than life itself, and I was so grief-stricken when he passed away. We shared a very special bond, and I still believe we have it. Oftentimes I would be thinking of him and our song would start playing at whatever place of business I was in at the time. That is not a top 40 hit these days, so I always felt that he was nearby. I went through a very serious bout of depression several years ago and strongly considered taking my own life. He came to me in a dream one night. He looked like he did when he was younger and healthier, wearing the usual button-up shirt and slacks. He was driving the car that he and my grandma had while I was growing up. I was so excited to see him. I could feel when he hugged me, and I could smell his Old Spice cologne. We talked about several things that had happened in my life since he passed away. He told me that he was so proud of me and that he loved me very much. He then jingled his keys and said, "Well, sweetheart, it's time for me to go." I begged him to take me with him. He looked at me and he said, "Well, I don't think I'm allowed to do that, but I will come back for you, I promise." And then he drove off into the night. I firmly believe that was my grandpa, and he came to let me know that I was going to be okay. I went through some dark times after that and attempted suicide. I am healing mentally and feel like a stronger person than I have ever been. I know my grandpa is out there, wherever we go when we move on, watching over me. Stephanie, there's so much to unpack here, but I love that you're a self-confessed creepy kid and that you gave birth to a creepy kid. It's obviously genetic, being a creepy kid. And you know what? Like, imaginary friends are so scary. Why are they always so scary? You're like, I have an imaginary friend, she lives in a tree, she's got long stringy hair and she's sad all the time. Like, that's not great. You know, I've got an imaginary friend and she's like a sparkly unicorn and it's all great, cute, you know. Imaginary friend with no eyes who lives in a tree, who stares into my soul from the darkness of the night, less cute. But I also think there's a reality to kids having imaginary friends, and I mean that in like the ability to see entities or whatever, and that we see it in this story that, you know, on the one hand I joke about it and I'm like, you know, drop kick him down the stairs or whatever, but on the other hand it also must be really terrifying. Like, obviously she's saying to you, the little boy was trying to scare me and his mommy stopped him, and that's not too bad. But when it's like you're a child and you see a man coming out of your closet, right, and you're, you know, terrified, you don't understand the concept of entities or imaginary friends, or, you know what I mean, sleep paralysis or whatever, you don't understand those things, so you can't even, nobody can explain it away for you other than people just saying it's just your imagination. Well, my imagination's terrifying, isn't it? I also love the fact that when you had that incident with the little boy, that you were like, please switch sides of the bed with me. I love sleep logic, where you're like, you know what, this is going to protect me. And in that moment you think, oh yeah, thank God I'm safe at the other side of the bed. But it really does sound like that you are a magnet to these sort of things, you know, that these things are attracted to you for whatever reason. Maybe you've got a great sparkly aura. Me mentioning a sparkly aura will probably seem very strange out of context, but many moons ago I met a psychic medium who told me that I had a lovely silver sparkly aura, and therefore dead people are attracted to me all the time. And I was like, well, they can stay attracted to me, but I'm not I'm not paying that any attention. So now I always think that when people have the ability to see entities or interact with them, or entities seem to be attracted to them, that they have a sparkly aura. I also think it's really lovely that you validated your daughter's feelings. You know, it'd be very easy to say to her, no, nobody else sees and feels things and it's just your imagination and it's silly. You know, you can sort of imagine that would be most parents' port of call. Understandably, I would probably do the same thing. But that building up that kind of relationship with her where you can say to her, hey, we can have conversations about this, is super important. I mean, I'm not a parent, so that's not me giving parenting advice. I just think it's nice for her to know that she can speak to her mum about these things, even if they feel strange or weird or different to other people. And on the last story about your grandfather, I'm glad that he is looking out for you and that you can feel him in times of need, and that the song plays whenever you're thinking about him. Like, I think it's such a beautiful thing, and, you know, and I'm glad for you that you feel like you're healing and you feel stronger, and that you have sort of waded through that darkness. And I hope that healing continues, and I hope that feeling of mental strength continues. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Zophea and Stephanie for sending in your story. Remember, the last story came from the 5th of June 2025. And if you'd like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you can get heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
From building a business to building an ecosystem to building a legacy. Overcome tomorrow's challenges together with our industrial partner ecosystem. Transform the everyday with Siemens.